Welcome to the 2015 egg hunt in the building of the Chibi-Maru Yamato. Action! Hi, my name is Dave Waples. I live in Denver, Colorado, and down here in the man cave with my trusty assistant Echo. Don't highly recommend cats in your work area, but we get along and coexist pretty well, I think. So, at any rate, what I wanted to do this year for the 2015 Easter egg hunt is share with you how I go about constructing my project, which is going to be the Fujimi Chibi-Maru IJN Yamato, which is kind of a multimedia kit. It's kind of new for them. It's the basic plastic kit, but they've also included photo-etch, and you can buy separately a paper-thin little wood deck to go along with it. Yeah, you can hold that, Echo. And so, at any rate, what I'll do is I'll just kind of focus on some of the primary things, and I'll make a huge movie out of it. But I hope you enjoy it. So let's go. All my egg projects go into a dome case. I use the Tamiya domes that work just perfect for these little egg projects, and they're not too expensive either. But pretty much what I want to do is mount this on finials just a little bit above the base, not too high. Don't want it to be overwhelming. But at any rate, I think you can see that these fit in here really nicely. What I'd like to do is share with you some of my construction techniques and some of my favorite tools for kind of basic assembly. I think pretty much everybody has these or something similar. These are Xuron sprue cutters. Basically just use these to remove parts from the sprue. These are something that I picked up at a IPMS show a few years ago. They're called sprue cutters, but for me what they are is a trimmer. They have a nice flat face to them, very sharp blades, and what I do is after I remove the parts from the sprue, what you'll do is you'll find like little attach points like this where the sprue connected with the final part. What a lot of people will do is they'll take a sander and they'll just start filing away. And typically what happens when you do that is instead of leaving that nice flat straight edge there, you kind of carve a divot into it. So that's something I definitely want to avoid, and that's kind of where these come in. So basically all I do, put these things up flush and just trim it flat, and it's pretty much done as it is right there. Another tool that I really like are step sanders. Pick these up I think at the same show, but what they are is they're a rigid plastic frame, and then they have a self-adhesive sanding strip that attaches to that frame, and it stays nice and stable, doesn't move around on you, which is very nice. Comes in different grits, anywhere from I think 200 up to 800, so you can take care of some rough spots, but you can also do some very fine sanding with it. At any rate, once I get this thing flush where I'm happy with it, you can go in here and just very lightly do some finish sanding. Keeps it nice and flat to make sure that when the two parts go together there are no gaps, there's nothing to fill. It really works very well for me. Another thing that I've done is I've created a very small little sanding tool, and I build a lot of ships in 1/700 scale, stuff about the size of this, and it's very difficult to get into nooks and crannies. So what I do is I actually take the self-adhesive sanding strips and attach them to this, and all this is a brass rod. I've soldered a couple of brass plates at an angle to the ends of the rod, and then I cut out to fit the sanding strip, attach it to the plate, and then I can just get into some really tight spots, and with the 300 to 800 200 to 800 grit sandpaper, I can really get a nice smooth and effective finish. So that's kind of the basics. What I do when I remove parts from the sprue and kind of clean them up a little bit. Okay, so we're making some progress. Got all of the major pieces cut out and cleaned up, and the cat's about to walk through, so please excuse Echo as she finds her way to her spot. But at any rate, this kit originally was not designed with photo-etch. This was an afterthought, and there's a very, very nice instruction sheet that comes along with it and where to place things. But what that means is that we have to go back into our kit and take a look at places like this where a photo etch is going to be attached to figure out how we're going to do it. So there's raised highlights here. All of that is going to need to be sanded off flat and smooth so that the photo etch will go into place well. And then we also have antenna like this that are going to have little photo etch pieces put into it. So we need to go through, cut out those sections, clean them up real nice, and get them ready. The deck itself, I think, is going to go down very nicely. The plastic deck has no raised features on it to interfere, so I don't have to sand anything off there. And the deck is laser cut with all the holes already in place. Do have to trim out around the major turret areas, but other than that, looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward. Now the photo etch, a lot of people like to just attach it to the model before they paint, but I'm of the belief that you want to keep the paint on this as thin as possible. So you don't want to do any priming. Okay, I'm working through some of the smaller pieces right now, and one of the things I found when I was cleaning up the stern section was that underneath there were some ejector pin marks, so not very visible, but I decided to go ahead and clean those up anyway, so I applied putty back there. And then the other thing I found when I was working on the turrets, they have these huge ejector pin holes. I think they're ejector pin holes. I'm not sure what else they're for. But they're pretty deep, and while, again, not very noticeable, I am going to go ahead and clean those up as well. So instead of just filling it with putty, which is going to shrink and so forth, what I'm going to start with is putting some rod in there, cementing it in place, letting it dry, and then I'll come back with a minimal amount of filler and clean those up. I think that'll work better. You're counting now. Alright, so welcome back. Me and Echo. Don't be confused. She's been a pain in the ass, but she's good now. So anyway, the next step is to paint the photo etch. Really nice stuff that came with this kit, as good as anything I've seen out there by anybody. So what I did first was I cleaned this with vinegar, and then after I rinsed it in vinegar for about 30 seconds, then I cleaned it off, washed it off real good with water, let it dry, and now what we're going to do is give it a good coat of the final color. And the reason for that is we want to minimize the amount of paint that we want on our photo etch to maintain that sharpness and smallness, if you will, because this is really tiny, delicate stuff. Paint I'm using is Chibi-Maru IJN Gray. Seems appropriate. That's what everybody seems to use for Japanese ships. So we're going to go ahead and thin this 50-50. We're going to shoot the photo etch and set it aside to dry for a few days. Okay, when I'm mixing my paints together, what I like to do is, especially with these Tamiya bottles, is use this Badger. You can see it's pretty well used. mixer. It's just basically there's a motor in there, and it's got a little paint mixing head on it, and it just spins like crazy and does a great job of mixing up the paint. I also use these little pipettes. I buy them in bulk, about 500 at a time, and on a box that I've been using for years. It lasts forever. But anyway, it gives a great method for mixing the paint 50-50 and know that you have a good consistent mix. The airbrush I use is the good old Evolution from Harder and Steenbeck on Phil's recommendation. I used to have a Iwata, and it was a good airbrush, but what I like about this is just how easy it is to clean. It's very open in the color cup, so it's easy to mix. I also have a Mac air valve on here, which I find very helpful. I purchased this controller. It helps maintain consistency. If you get the right mix and you just want to maintain it, you just push it back. It keeps you from pulling back too far and throwing too much paint onto your subject. And for something like this, it's actually pretty handy. Keep you from getting a little bit too carried away. But again, highly recommend this airbrush to anybody. If Phil's getting a commission, he deserves it. One thing I like to do when I'm mixing up this paint is I just kind of mix it around in there with the end of the pipette, but then what I do is I'll just draw the paint up and down inside the pipette, get it to mix really well that way. It's a little tougher to clean maybe, but that's okay. You can usually get half a dozen uses at least out of a pipette, as long as you keep it clean. And it's shooting really nice. Okay, so protect my hands. What I do is just put on a pair of blue nitrate gloves. So we're ready to go. So turn on the extractor and let's get going. First we'll lay down a good mist coat. Make sure we do both sides, except don't really need to do the bottom of these panels. They're going to be laying directly onto the deck, so you won't even see that. We could just switch to air and just kind of air dry it before we add our second coat. But I really like to thin it a good 50-50 just to make sure the coat is smooth and thin. Give it a little air dry. We'll put one final coat on here, especially on these big panels. That's all looking very nice. That ought to do it. Okay, so what I have done since we last met is I finished doing some assembly and cleanup. The hull was put together, completed. I primed the bottom half with, actually I primed the whole model with the Vallejo polyurethane primer, and really like this stuff. As long as you give it a couple of days to really dry off well, works terrific. So anyway, after that, I shot it with a combination of Tamiya whole red and flat red. 2 parts whole red to 1 part flat red. Felt it gave it a little bit more reddish color. The whole red looks a little bit too brown. Not quite right in my opinion. But at any rate, I like the way this looks. So went ahead, painted the bottom of the hull. I've masked it off. I'm ready to paint the upper surfaces. The other thing you can see that I've done on some of these other parts as well is the shadow areas. Just like the airplanes you see everybody else do, I appreciated it. Just shot some flat black back in the recessed areas and the areas that are going to be darker than others. This is the upper superstructure. I can say that. At any rate, down in the shadow areas, I shot flat black, shot flat back down the funnel. The other thing I had to do in the funnel was it had giant connecting pins in there, so now that it was dry and ready to be worked, I actually took my Dremel tool in there, cleaned out those big pins so that it looks nice and smooth on the inside. The other thing I've done is I found a lot of these connecting points were really tight. I would put the pieces in place, but I couldn't get them all the way down. And my fear was that if I did, I would break the pins off in the holes and it would create a nightmare. So what I've done is I got out my trusty reamer set and found this very, very helpful for the gun turrets, for the gun placements, anywhere where there's pins. For the larger pins, I used a round file and just popped it in there, gave it a couple spins. That loosened it up so that, for example, the superstructure just sets right in nice and easy. So it's pretty much all ready to go. Yeah, what I really like about these reamers is that to open up these holes, you just slip them in there, and they have 4 sharp edges around the perimeter. And just you just give it a quick little spin, and that's all there is to it. Blow it out, you're good to go. Then the pieces, after they're painted up and after we're ready to finish it up, we'll just slip in nice and easy, no extra work. Now the plan is to paint the main color of the ship IJN gray, for lack of a better name. I'm sure it's got a name. I don't know what it is. But at any rate, want to make sure I get the hull painted up, the foredeck painted up, and then add the stern section. And then after that, we'll put a finish coat on the hull to protect it. And then at that point, we'll go ahead and lay down our wooden deck. And I think that's going to look really sharp. Then it's simply a matter of finishing off these other pieces, painting them, getting them in place, and then the final step is going to be to add the photo etch. And then we'll come back and do a little bit of touch-up paint and post shading just to kind of finish it off and give it a nice flat coat. Okay, so we're back. Going to lay down some paint now. Here with Echo, the Wonder Cat. And it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're just going to take some Tamiya XF75, which is the IJN gray, and mix it 50-50 with the X28 thinner. We're going to lay down a couple of coats of paint on all the parts plus the hull. I've gone ahead and mounted the superstructure to the deck. Not really concerned about the deck so much, since it's going to have a little wood insert later on the top of it, so a little overspray isn't going to cause any problems for us. So what I'm going to do is shoot some paint. I'll leave the camera going, we'll put it in fast forward and see how it comes out. almost forgot. What I want to do is, in the funnel, stick a little piece of foam in there so I don't disturb the black that I painted earlier. Okay, that's it for now. Okay, so the ship has a pair of searchlights on each side of the exhaust stack, and I was trying to figure out how to best handle that. So what I decided to do was I went ahead and primed it, then I shot all-clad some sort of aluminum. I think it was white aluminum. Yeah, it was white aluminum. And shot that down, let it dry overnight. Then what I did was I took my handy punch set, and what I do is take a little strip off, determine the correct size, get this thing apart. Then what I do is I stick it bottom side up to the top part, take my handy puncher, wherever the heck it went. Where did it go? I'll be right back with you. Sorry about that, found it. So we got the punch, just give a little push down. Tape is now on the back of the punch. Take my fine tweezers, pull it off, and fit it over the lens. Tamp it down real nice. Okay, so I'll do the other one. We'll paint it. We're done. Okay, so we painted everything this morning. Now we're back this evening. It's had a good chance to dry. What I'm going to do is take the base color, lighten it, and what we're going to do is add some highlights before we assemble the final model. So a lot of times with airplanes, you'll do the post shading after you assemble everything, but in this case I want to have all of the post shading pretty much done before I do the assembly. So all I'm doing is just taking our little ship here and not adding a whole lot, just enough to highlight some panels. Anywhere where the sun's getting some good exposure. And actually, the lights from my hobby room give me something coming out. Give me some good direction as to where I should be applying the lighter colors. I think that's looking pretty good. Flip and do the other side. Yeah, just enough to kind of break up the pattern a little bit. It's very gray. It's going to be very boring if it's just all a very consistent gray. So breaking it up really helps it quite a bit here. Just to bring you up to speed, masking has been removed from the hole. Give it a flat finish to protect the paint. It's all ready to go for the deck. I've actually added one of the first pieces of photo etch back here just to see how it was going to go. It went really well. So it's time to put the deck on. So what I did was there are little holes down in here for some of the gun mounts, and I'm lacking guide positions back here. I guess I could have put the deck back here, and I could have used that, but wasn't ready to put that in yet. I do have guide positions for the deck in these forward turret mounts, but that was all I had. So I wanted to make sure it was going to go down right. So what I did was I measured the diameter of these holes, and I found some plastic post or dowel or plastic whatever. At any rate, so what I did was I put those in the holes, and I'm using them for guide pins. And I got the forward turret mount as a guide here. So in a perfect world, this is going to slide down, echoes back, and it's going to be done. So let's see how it goes. A bit of progress since my last video shooting. So just want to explain exactly what we've done. We have added all of the photo etch, and again, the way we did that, did not use a primer because we want to keep the color as thin as possible to maintain the detail. Then let's see what else. The props were all clear coated with Future and then sprayed with Alclad Pale Gold. Up here at the front, there's the crest that is so prominent on IJN vessels. So the way I did that was I took some masking tape, my punch set, punched a hole, created a mask, fitted it over the crest, and shot that with pale gold as well. The photo etch was attached with gator grip. Probably you've seen this before. Really wonderful stuff for attaching photo etch, mostly because it dries clear and it shrinks, and it is pretty much invisible when it's done. The rigging, I spent pretty much the majority of the day doing that today. What I did was I took some sprues from the kit, stretched them until they were really, really thin, and then attached the lines using the gator's grip as well. Then the other thing I did after that's done, I used this tool. So, not sure what this is called, but this was recommended to me by another modeler. But basically what you do is you heat the ends of this, and then you pass it under the stretch sprue, and when you do that, it goes from being a little bit slack to just nice and taut, and everything on here is really, really sharp and tight. So I'm very, very pleased with that. then I think that's pretty much it. Another thing I did was the way that the windows were set up is that they were basically raised panels all the way around. And I suppose I could have painted it gray and then tried to paint black on the raised panels, but I really didn't think I was going to get the sharpness that I was looking for. So what I did there was I took stretch sprue again, and then I used my chopper and cut them all to size, and then using Future I laid these down in place and cemented them in place using Future. Uh, Really worked out great. I'm really happy with the way it worked out. I did a little bit of touch-up painting on the rails. Those took quite a bit of work. I actually had to use CA glue, or not CA, yeah, CA glue to attach these in this place, just because the curves were so complex and the photo etch provided was not that good as far as matching the contours. I mean, once it's in place, it really looks great, but when they designed it, they really did not capture the complex curves of the hull. So it took a little bit of work, a few little snips here and there to kind of get it into place, but really came out sharp. It's got the nice egg look from looking at it from the top. Couldn't be happier with the way this came out. Also like the wood deck. I don't know if I showed that before, but very pleased with how that came out. Now for the base, I kind of played around with a couple of ideas. I was thinking about maybe a map underneath, something like that. But in the end, what I did was I found some artwork for a Imperial Japanese flag, period flag, and I printed it on photo paper, attached it to a base, and it's going to be glued in place underneath the ship. I think that's really going to look pretty darn sharp. So I'm going to call it a night. Ship's done. We just need to attach it to the base and take the final reveal photos and finish up this video. Okay, so got up this morning and put the final touches on the little egg ship here. So what I did was on the base secured the emblem down with the contact cement. It's all bolted down. It's not going anywhere. Used some little knurls from the home improvement store as a base. I think they work pretty well for this subject. What else did we do? So I don't know how well you can see it, but the Japanese flags were added to the ship. Did a few more touch-up spots on the photo etch, which really worked out, came out nicely. And that's about it. I think we're all done. So got to tell you, I really enjoyed this build. It was a nice little distraction from my other activities. So, 5 weeks, used every day of it. Quite a little project, but I think it really came out nice. Definitely the most ambitious egg project I've had to date. So, hope you enjoyed it. I'll take some close-up pictures of it and post it along with the final reveal. And again, thanks for joining, and hope you got something out of this.